The waitress accidentally hugged the city's most dangerous mafia boss in front of everyone. The photo went viral by morning. Now his enemies think she matters to him, his rivals want to use her as leverage, and he's decided she's under his protection, whether she wants it or not. The Belmont Hotel ballroom smelled like money and desperation. Sofia Castellano balanced a tray of champagne flutes, weaving through women dripping in diamonds and men whose watches cost more than her yearly rent. The annual Children's Hope Foundation Gala always brought out New York's elite, and tonight the room buzzed with an electric tension she couldn't quite place. "Refill, miss," a silver-haired woman thrust an empty glass toward her without making eye contact. Sofia forced a smile. "Of course, ma'am." 6 hours into her shift, her feet screamed in the borrowed heels, but she needed this job. The catering company paid double for these high-profile events, and double meant keeping the lights on in her studio apartment for another month. Maybe even fixing the leak in her ceiling. She was turning toward the bar when she felt it, a shift in the room's energy, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. Antonio Russo had entered. Sofia didn't know his name yet, but she knew power when she saw it. The crowd parted without anyone saying a word. Conversations died mid-sentence. A woman actually stepped backward, nearly tripping over her own gown. He moved through the ballroom like a shark through shallow water, tall, dark-suited, with the kind of face that belonged on Roman statues. Sharp jaw, darker eyes, and an expression that suggested he'd never smiled in his life. 3 men flanked him. Not bodyguards exactly, but something more dangerous. They had the look of wolves pretending to be dogs. "That's Antonio Russo," whispered Jenny, another waitress, grabbing Sofia's elbow. Her voice shook. "Don't look at him. Don't even breathe near him." "Who?" Jenny's eyes went wide. "Girl, where are you from?" "He runs half the city. The half the mayor pretends doesn't exist." Sofia's stomach dropped. Mafia. Of course. She'd heard stories everyone had about the Russo family. Bodies found in the Hudson. Businesses that burned down when owners refused protection. Witnesses who suddenly lost their memories. She should have walked away. Should have gone to the kitchen. Should have done literally anything else. Instead, she stepped backward, trying to give the dangerous man more space, and her heel caught on the leg of a chair. Everything happened in slow motion. The tray tilted. 6 glasses of red wine launched into the air like crimson missiles. Sofia's arms windmilled as she stumbled forward, directly into the path of Antonio Russo. The wine splashed across his crisp white shirt, a Jackson Pollock painting of expensive fabric ruined. The crowd gasped. Someone dropped a glass. The sound of crystal shattering echoed like a gunshot. Sofia crashed into him, and instinct took over. She hugged him. Not a gentle touch or a steadying hand. A full body, arms wrapped around torso, face pressed into wine-soaked shirt hug. The kind you give family at the airport. The kind that said, "I'm sorry and please don't kill me, and this is the worst night of my life all at once." 3 heartbeats. The entire ballroom held its breath. Antonio Russo stood frozen. His hands hovered at his sides like he'd forgotten how they worked. His face showed nothing, no rage, no shock, just a terrible blankness that somehow felt more dangerous than anger. Sofia's brain finally caught up to her body. She released him and stumbled backward, wine dripping from her fingers. "I'm so sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I'll pay for the shirt. I'll pay for everything. God, I'm so sorry." The ballroom remained silent. Somewhere in the back, a photographer's camera flashed. Then another. Suddenly flashbulbs popped like fireworks as every Society page reporter in New York captured the moment. One of Antonio's men moved forward, his hand disappearing into his jacket. Sofia's life didn't flash before her eyes. She just thought about how her little brother would find out she'd died, and how unfair that would be. "Stop." Antonio's voice cut through the silence. Low, rough, with a hint of something that might have been an Italian accent buried under decades of Brooklyn. The man froze. Antonio stared at Sophia. Really stared, like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't add up. His dark eyes moved from her face to her name tag, Sophia, written in cheerful cursive, then to her wine-stained hands, still trembling. "What's your name?" he asked. Sophia. Sophia Castellano. She couldn't stop talking. Nerves made her mouth run. "I work for Premium Catering." "Well, I don't work for them. I'm freelance. Independent contractor, technically. I'm really sorry about your shirt. It's a nice shirt. Was a nice shirt. I'll pay you back, I promise. I might need a payment plan, but..." "Go home, Sophia Castellano." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was dismissal, the way a king might dismiss a jester who'd stopped being amusing. Sophia didn't need to be told twice. She abandoned her tray, kicked off her heels, and ran. Through the ballroom, past the shocked faces, down the service corridor, not stopping until she burst into the cool November night. Behind her, she didn't see Antonio Russo touch the spot on his chest where she'd hugged him. Didn't see the confused look that flickered across his face for just a moment before his mask slammed back into place. Didn't see his consigliere, Rossi, lean close and whisper, "Boss." Every camera in that room caught it. Didn't see Antonio's jaw tighten as he said, "Handle it." But by morning, Sophia would understand exactly what she'd done. Because by morning, the hug would be everywhere. The photo, her arms wrapped around the most dangerous man in New York, his face showing the closest thing to surprise anyone had ever captured, hit social media at 11:47 p.m. By midnight, it had 10,000 shares. By 2 a.m., it was a meme. By dawn, it was on the front page of the New York Post with the headline, "Boss Goes Soft. Mafia King Gets Hugged into Submission." And somewhere in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, Antonio Russo stood at his window, holding his phone, staring at the photo of a moment that should never have happened. A moment that changed everything. His phone buzzed. Rossi's name appeared. "We have a problem," Rossi said. Bernardi called an emergency meeting. All 5 families. They're talking. Antonio closed his eyes. In his world, talking meant planning. Planning meant blood. "When?" he asked. "Tonight." Antonio looked at the photo again. At the girl with the terrified smile and wine-stained hands who'd done what no one in 10 years had dared to do. She'd touched him like he was human. And now, because of one impulsive moment, one accidental hug, the entire underworld was circling like sharks who'd smelled blood in the water. His blood. "Find out everything about Sophia Castellano," Antonio said quietly. "Where she lives, where she works, who she loves. You want her taken care of?" Antonio was silent for a long moment. "I want her protected. She just became a piece on the board whether she knows it or not." He ended the call and looked out at the city, his city, lit up like a constellation of possibilities and threats. The game had changed. And Sophia Castellano had no idea she'd just become the most important person in New York. The emergency meeting happened in a place that didn't officially exist, a warehouse in Red Hook that belonged to no one and everyone. Luca Bernardi arrived first, his silver Mercedes pulling up at exactly 1 a.m. He was old-school Italian, 60-something with slicked-back hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. Vincent Chavez came next, representing the Dominican networks that controlled everything below 125th Street. Then Marcus Webb, who ran the Irish docks. Finally, David Chun, quiet and deadly, who'd turned Chinatown into an empire. For families, for men who'd learned to coexist in an uneasy peace, held together by one simple rule: don't make yourself look weak. Antonio Russo had just broken that rule. "Gentlemen," Lucas spread his hands like a priest welcoming his congregation. The photo of Sophia hugging Antonio was projected on the wall, blown up to 10 feet tall. "I assume you've all seen this." Vincent laughed, a sharp bark. "Seen it? My daughter sent it to me. It's got 3 million views. There are TikToks, Luca. TikToks of people reenacting it." "The caption on Instagram," Marcus said, reading from his phone. When Bey finally shows emotion, 20,000 likes, he shook his head. Antonio Russo is Bey now. This isn't funny, Lucas said, but his eyes gleamed. This is an opportunity. David Chun, who rarely spoke, leaned forward. Explain. For 10 years, Russo has held the North Side with an iron fist. Nobody challenges him because nobody wants to test whether the stories are true. Luca pointed at the photo. But look at his face. Really look. That's not the face of a killer. That's the face of a man who doesn't know what to do when a girl hugs him. So, Vincent asked. So maybe the stories aren't true anymore. Maybe the king is getting soft. Luca pulled up another photo. Antonio at last month's shipping negotiation, stone-faced and dangerous. Then the hug photo again. Men like us, we survive on reputation, on fear. The moment people stop being afraid, we're just well-dressed criminals waiting for a cell. Marcus leaned back, understanding dawning. You want to test him. I want to prove he's soft. In public. In front of people who matter, Lucas smiled. There's a shipping negotiation Friday. 40 dock workers, 6 union reps, all watching to see who controls the waterfront contracts. I say we push. Make him choose between looking weak or showing his hand. That's dangerous, David said quietly. Everything we do is dangerous. That's the job, Lucas spread his hands. I'm not suggesting we go to war. I'm suggesting we see if the emperor's wearing clothes. If he backs down, we renegotiate territories. If he doesn't, he shrugged. Then we know where we stand. Vincent grinned. I like it. Russo's had the best shipping routes for too long, anyway. The vote was unanimous. Across town, in a penthouse that overlooked a city that never truly slept, Antonio Russo stood in his office while 5 men argued about his future. This is a disaster, Rossi, his consigliere for 15 years, paced like a caged animal. He was thin, sharp-featured, with silver threading through his black hair. Every family from here to Boston is watching. They're going to test you, Tony. You know they are. Let them. Antonio's voice was flat. Let them. Rossi stopped pacing. You can't be serious. The shipping negotiation is in 3 days. Bernardi will make his move there, guaranteed. You need damage control. A statement. Something that reminds everyone who you are. I know who I am. Does the rest of the world? Rossi gestured at the laptop, showing the viral photo. Because right now, they think you're a teddy bear who lets random women hug him at parties. Carlo Mancini, one of Antonio's underbosses, spoke up from his position by the window. He was younger, early 30s, with a kind of smooth handsomeness that made people underestimate him. That was usually their last mistake. Maybe Rossi's right, boss. Maybe we need to send a message. Something. Visible. Antonio's eyes slid to Carlo. What kind of message? The girl. Sofia Castellano. Carlo shrugged, carefully casual. She's the story. Remove the story, the problem disappears. The room went very quiet. Rossi closed his eyes. Carlo, shut up. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. No one's thinking that, Rossi snapped. Use your brain. You kill some random waitress over a hug? That doesn't make us look strong. It makes us look scared. Weak. Like she got under our skin. She did get under our skin. Enough. Antonio's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the argument like a blade. Both men fell silent. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets, watching the city lights. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, thoughtful. The girl doesn't die. She's not a threat. She's not anything. Boss, Carlo started. She's also not the problem. Bernardi's the problem. He's been waiting for an excuse to test me for 2 years. This just gave him 1 inch. Antonio turned to face his men. So we give him what he wants. Rossi frowned. What does that mean? It means we go to the negotiation. We let him make his play. And then we remind everyone what happens to people who mistake patience for weakness. A slow smile spread across Rossi's face. You're going to let him think he's winning. Right up until he isn't. Carlo shifted uncomfortably. And the girl? The media won't leave this alone. They're camped outside her apartment already. For the first time, something flickered across Antonio's face. Not anger. Something harder to define. Put 2 men on her. Rotating shifts. If anyone touches her, if anyone so much as looks at her wrong, I want to know about it. Boss, that's resources we could use. Antonio's gaze fixed on Carlo, and the younger man stopped talking immediately. She became part of this the moment she touched me. That makes her my responsibility. He returned to his desk, the conversation over. Now get out. All of you. I have work to do. The men filed out. But Carlo paused at the door, glancing back at Antonio with an expression that might have been confusion or calculation. Or ambition. Outside, as they walked to their cars, Rossi grabbed Carlo's arm. Whatever you're thinking, don't. Carlo pulled free. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. I've seen that look before. On men who ended up in the Hudson, Rossi stepped closer. Antonio's not getting soft. He's playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. Don't be stupid enough to confuse the 2-inch. Carlo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course. I would never doubt the boss. He walked away, and Rossi watched him go, a bad feeling settling in his gut like old coffee. The game was changing. The only question was whether everyone understood the new rules. Sophia knew she was in trouble when she saw the reporters. They were waiting outside her apartment building at 6 a.m., a small army armed with cameras and microphones. She'd made it 3 steps out the door before they swarmed. Sophia, can you comment on your relationship with Antonio Russo? How long have you two been together? Is it true you're under his protection? Did he pay you to stage the hug? Sophia pushed through them, head down, trying to reach the subway station 2 blocks away. Her phone had been ringing non-stop since yesterday. 37 missed calls. 62 text messages. Her Instagram had exploded with friend requests from accounts with 0 followers and suspicious names. Someone had found her address. Posted it online with a map. No comment, she muttered, walking faster. I don't know him. It was an accident that's been viewed 20 million times. A camera flashed directly in her face. Sophia flinched, stumbling on the curb. Strong hands caught her elbow, one of the reporters pretending to help while getting his shot. She yanked free and ran. The subway was a blessed relief. Anonymous. Dark. She found a seat in the corner and pulled out her phone with shaking hands. The catering company had called twice. She dialed back. Premium catering, this is. Hi, it's Sophia Castellano. I got a message to call back. A pause. Then, Miss Castellano. Yes. I'm afraid we have to let you go. Sophia's stomach dropped. What? Why? We've received attention. Our clients prefer discretion. This situation with Mr. Russo is the opposite of discreet. I'm sure you understand. I don't understand. I spilled wine on someone. That's it. I didn't do anything wrong. Nevertheless, we can't have our staff becoming tabloid stories. Your final check will be mailed. Good luck, Miss Castellano. Click. Sophia stared at her phone. Fired. She'd been fired for being clumsy. No, she'd been fired for accidentally hugging a mobster. The train lurched forward, and Sophia closed her eyes, fighting back tears. She had $400 in her checking account. Rent was due in 3 weeks. Her brother's college tuition payment was coming up. She couldn't afford to lose this job. She couldn't afford any of this. By noon, things got worse. Sophia worked at Rosie's diner 3 days a week, not for the money, which was terrible, but because Rosie Martinez had given her a job when she was 18 and desperate, fresh off the bus from Pennsylvania with nothing but a suitcase and hope. The diner was old-school Brooklyn, all cracked vinyl booths and burnt coffee, but it was hers in a way the catering gigs never were. She was halfway through her shift when the brick came through the window. The sound was deafening, glass exploding inward like a bomb, shards flying everywhere. A customer screamed. Sophia dove behind the counter as safety glass rained down like deadly confetti. "Everybody down," Rosie yelled, grabbing the baseball bat she kept under the register. Sophia peeked over the counter. The brick sat in the middle of the diner floor, wrapped in paper. She crawled forward and grabbed it, hands shaking. The note was written in red marker, Mafia whore. "Leave Russo alone." "Oh my God," Sophia whispered. Rosie snatched the note, read it, and her face went pale. "Sophia, what the hell is going on?" "I don't know. I swear I don't know him. It was an accident at the gala. I spilled wine and it just happened. I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to what? Become internet famous?" "Honey, you're all over the news. Mystery woman gets close to crime boss. They're saying you two are dating. That you're his girlfriend. That's insane." "Welcome to the internet," Rosie pointed at the shattered window. "But this is real. Whoever threw that brick knows where you work. They're sending a message." Sophia felt tears burning her eyes. "What am I supposed to do?" Rosie's expression softened. She pulled Sophia into a hug, a real one, not the panicked collision that started this nightmare. "You're going to go home. Take a few days. Let this blow over. Rosie, I need this job. And you'll still have it. But right now you're a target. I can't have you here if it means my other customers get hurt." She squeezed Sophia's shoulders. "Go home. Lock your doors. This will pass." Sophia wasn't sure she believed that. But she went home anyway. What Sophia didn't know was that she wasn't alone. In a black sedan parked 3 blocks from her apartment, 2 men watched a bank of monitors showing live feeds from cameras that hadn't existed yesterday. Entrance, lobby, her floor, even a long-range shot of her front door. "Boss wants updates every 2 hours, the driver said. His name was Tommy, and he'd been with the Russo family for 8 years. "This is a waste of time," his partner muttered. "Babysitting some waitress. Boss doesn't waste time. If he says watch her, we watch her." They watched Sophia trudge up the stairs to her apartment, shoulders slumped, carrying her coat like it weighed 100 pounds. Tommy's phone buzzed. A text from Rossi. "Any problems?" He replied. "Brick through her workplace window. Note called her Russo's whore. She's scared." The response came back immediately. "Get photos of the note. Find who threw it." Tommy zoomed in one of the cameras, capturing the note still clutched in Sophia's hand as she unlocked her door. "We moving on this?" his partner asked. "Not yet. Boss wants to see how deep this goes first." In his penthouse, Antonio Russo watched the same feeds on his laptop. He'd watched Sophia get mobbed by reporters. Watched her get fired over the phone. He'd had someone hack her cellular provider for the audio. Watched her dive behind the counter when the brick came through. Watched her cry in the stairwell when she thought no one could see. His jaw tightened. Rossi entered without knocking. The brick came from a burner account. Someone hired a local kid on dark web. $100, no questions asked. Untraceable. Which means someone wanted to send a message without leaving fingerprints. Bernardi? Maybe. Or someone else testing to see if I'll react. Antonio closed the laptop. Double the surveillance. I want to know everyone who gets within 50 feet of her. And find that kid who threw the brick. I want to know who paid him. Tony, she's just a civilian caught in the crossfire. This is costing us resources. She stopped being a civilian the moment that photo went viral. Antonio stood, straightening his cuffs. Bernardi thinks he can use her to get to me. Prove I'm weak. So we protect her. Not because I care about one waitress, but because I won't give him the satisfaction. Rossi studied his boss's face. Is that the only reason? Antonio didn't answer. He returned to the window, to his view of the city where somewhere, a frightened young woman was learning that one moment of clumsiness could destroy everything. He touched his chest, where she'd hugged him. Where, for just 3 seconds, someone had touched him without fear or calculation or want. Like he was just a person. He touched his chest, where she'd hugged him. Where, for just 3 seconds, someone had touched him without fear or calculation or want. like he was just a person. She's part of the board now, he said quietly, whether she knows it or not. The shipping negotiation took place in a warehouse at the Brooklyn docks that smelled like salt water and old money. 40 dock workers lined the walls, arms crossed, watching. 6 union reps sat at a long table covered in contracts. This was theater as much as business. Everyone here would talk about what happened today, and those stories would spread through every bar and break room from Red Hook to Staten Island. Antonio arrived exactly on time. Rossi walked 2 steps behind him, scanning faces. The dock workers shifted nervously as Antonio passed. Good. Fear kept order better than any contract. Luca Bernardi was already seated, looking relaxed in an expensive suit that didn't quite hide the paunch at his belly. His enforcer, Marco, stood behind him, 6'4" of muscle and bad attitude. Antonio, Luca smiled like they were old friends. So glad you could make it. We were just discussing the new shipping routes. Were you? Antonio took his seat, not a question. For 30 minutes, they negotiated. Percentages. Routes. Who controlled which piers. It was the same dance they did every quarter, each side trying to grab an extra point or two. Antonio had done this for 10 years. He knew every play before it happened. Then Luca made his move. Before we finalize, Luca said, loud enough for everyone to hear, I wanted to address something. There's been some concern in the community about your focus lately, Antonio. The warehouse went quiet. Dock workers exchanged glances. Even the union reps looked up from their papers. Antonio's expression didn't change. Concern. Well, Luca spread his hands. All false sympathy. That incident at the gala. The photo. People are talking. Wondering if your head's still in the game, or if it's somewhere else. Someone else. A few workers chuckled nervously. Funny thing about that photo, Luca continued. My daughter showed it to me. She thought it was cute. Cute, Antonio. That's what people think when they see you now. Not dangerous. Not powerful. Cute. More laughter, bolder now. I mean, we all understand. Pretty girl, innocent eyes. Must be refreshing after dealing with people like us all day. Luca leaned back. But some of us worry you're getting soft. That may be the old Antonio Russo, the one who made grown men piss themselves. Maybe he's gone. Maybe he got hugged to death. The warehouse erupted in laughter. Marco grinned, showing too many teeth. Rossi tensed beside Antonio, hand moving toward his jacket. Antonio caught his wrist. Squeezed once. Not yet. Antonio stood slowly. The laughter died like someone had flipped a switch. You're right, Luca, Antonio said quietly. That photo was unfortunate. It sent the wrong message. Made people think I'd gone soft. Luca's smile widened. He thought he'd won. So let me clarify something. Antonio walked around the table, hands in his pockets, casual as Sunday morning. For anyone confused about who I am or what I'm capable of. For anyone who thinks a photograph changes 10 years of history. He stopped in front of Marco. Your enforcer. What's his name? Luca blinked. Marco. Why? Marco. Antonio looked up at the bigger man. You laughed at me. Marco's grin faltered. Boss, I didn't mean. You laughed. In front of 40 witnesses. You laughed because you think I'm soft now. That I've lost my edge. Antonio's voice remained conversational. Almost friendly. That's disrespectful, Marco. To me. To my reputation. And I can't let disrespect slide. You understand. Mr. Russo, I was just. Antonio moved. It happened so fast that most people missed it. One moment he was standing still. The next, he had Marco's wrist twisted at an impossible angle. The enforcer tried to pull away, and Antonio followed the momentum, using Marco's own strength against him. The crack echoed through the warehouse like a gunshot. Marco screamed. A high, animal sound that made several dock workers flinch. He dropped to his knees, cradling his arm. The bone jutted against skin at a wrong angle. Not broken clean, but shattered. The kind of break that needed surgery. Multiple surgeries. Antonio released him and stepped back, not a hair out of place. His breathing hadn't even changed. "Anyone else think I'm soft?" he asked the room. Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. Antonio turned to Luca, who'd gone pale. "The old shipping arrangement stands. You don't get the new routes. You don't get better percentages. And if I hear you've been talking about me or mine again, if I hear you've so much as mentioned that girl's name, Marco's arm will look like a best-case scenario compared to what happens to you." He let that sink in. Let them all see it. The man who'd built an empire on fear and blood hadn't gone anywhere. The hug didn't change that. Nothing changed that. "We're done here." Antonio buttoned his jacket. "Rossi, let's go." Outside, as they walked to the car, Rossi finally spoke. That was bold. Breaking Bernardi's man in front of everyone. It was necessary. They needed reminded. The girl's going to be a bigger target now. Bernardi knows you're sensitive about her. Antonio stopped walking. Rossi was right, and they both knew it. By reacting, even violently, Antonio had confirmed what Luca suspected. Sofia mattered. And things that mattered were vulnerabilities. "Find her," Antonio said. "Bring her in." "Boss, she's a civilian. You really want to drag her deeper into this?" "She's already in it. She just doesn't know how deep yet." Antonio opened the car door. "Find her. Make the offer. And Rossi. Yeah. Be nice. She's scared enough." In her apartment, Sofia was packing a bag. She'd made the decision that morning. New York wasn't safe anymore. She'd go back to Pennsylvania, stay with her cousin in Harrisburg, figure out a new plan. The city had chewed her up and was spitting her out. She was folding a sweater when someone knocked. Not the friendly knock of a neighbor. Sharp. Authoritative. The kind of knock that said, "I'm not leaving until you open this door." Sofia looked through the peephole. A thin man in an expensive suit stood there, flanked by two others. He held up a business card to the peephole. Rossi. Business associate. No company name. No phone number. Just that. "Miss Castellano," the man called through the door. "My name is Rossi. I work for Antonio Russo. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to make you an offer. 5 minutes of your time. That's all I'm asking." Sofia's hand trembled on the doorknob. Every instinct screamed at her to stay quiet. Pretend she wasn't home. But another part of her, the part that had survived 3 years in New York on pure stubbornness, knew hiding wouldn't work. If they'd found her once, they'd find her again. She opened the door, keeping the chain lock engaged. "I don't want any trouble." "Neither do we, miss. But trouble's found you anyway. The question is whether you face it alone, or whether you let us help." "Help." Sofia almost laughed. "Your boss is the reason I lost my job. The reason people are throwing bricks at me. How exactly is he helping?" Rossi's expression softened. "By making sure those people don't do worse than throw bricks. By keeping you alive while everyone figures out what that photo means." "It doesn't mean anything. I spilled wine. I apologized. That's it." "Maybe. But the world thinks it means something. And in our business, Miss Castellano, perception is reality." He handed a card through the gap in the door. "Mr. Russo would like to meet with you. Tonight. To discuss your situation and offer solutions." "What if I say no? Then you're on your own. And I'll be honest with you, you won't last a week." The card was heavy. Expensive paper. Just an address in Manhattan and a time. 8 p.m. "I don't have a choice, do I?" "Maybe. But the world thinks it means something. And in our business, Miss Castellano, perception is reality." He handed a card through the gap in the door. "Mr. Russo would like to meet with you. Tonight. To discuss your situation and offer solutions." "What if I say no? Then you're on your own. And I'll be honest with you, you won't last a week." The card was heavy. Expensive paper. Just an address in Manhattan and a time. 8 p.m. "I don't have a choice, do I?" Rossi's smile was sad. "You had a choice. You made it 3 days ago when you hugged the most dangerous man in New York. Everything after that is just consequences." The penthouse was nothing like Sophia expected. She'd imagined dark wood and leather, something out of a gangster movie. Instead, it was modern and minimalist, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, white walls, clean lines. It looked like a tech billionaire's apartment, not a crime boss's lair. Antonio Russo stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the city lights. He didn't turn when she entered. Miss Castellano, his voice was the same as she remembered, low, controlled, with that hint of Brooklyn buried under careful diction. Thank you for coming. Like I had a choice. Now he turned. In the dim lighting, he looked different than at the gala. Less intimidating somehow. Or maybe she was just too tired to be properly terrified. You always have a choice. You just don't always like the options, he gestured to the couch.
Please.
Sit. Sophia remained standing. Why am I here? Because you're in danger. Because that photo made you a target. Because right now, there are people who want to use you to get to me, and I can't allow that. So, this is about protecting yourself. Yes, no hesitation. No pretense. But protecting you is part of that equation. Sophia laughed, sharp and bitter. I've lost my job. My home is surrounded by reporters. Someone threw a brick through my workplace. And now you want to what, help me? You're the reason this is happening. I'm the reason you're still alive. The words landed like a punch. Sophia's mouth went dry. Antonio crossed the room, stopping a careful distance away. The brick wasn't random.
It was a test.
Someone wanted to see how I'd react. If I defend you, protect you, they got their answer today. What does that mean? It means you matter to me now. Whether I want you to or not. Whether you want to or not, he pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. This is Marco Torelli. He works for Luca Bernardi, one of my rivals. This morning, I broke his arm in front of 40 witnesses because he laughed about you. Sophia stared at the hospital photo. The mangled arm. Her stomach turned. I didn't ask you to do that.
No.
But it needed to be done. To send a message. Unfortunately, the message it sent was that you're important enough for me to break protocol, which makes you valuable. And valuable things in my world have a habit of getting stolen. Sophia backed up until she hit the window. What do you want from me? I want to control the narrative. Right now, you're a mystery. The girl who hugged the crime boss. That mystery makes you dangerous to both of us. He picked up a folder from the coffee table, handed it to her. I run a foundation. Children's literacy programs, after-school care, scholarship funds. Completely legitimate. I want you to work there. Sophia opened the folder. A contract. A salary that was 3 times what she'd been making. Health insurance. Benefits. You want to give me a job. I want to give you a cover story. A reason we're in contact. You're not some random waitress. You're a foundation employee. We met at the gala because you work for my charity. The hug becomes a greeting between colleagues. The story gets boring. The media moves on. It was smart. Disturbingly smart. And if I refuse? Antonio's expression didn't change. Then you go back to your apartment. You deal with the reporters, the harassment, the threats. You hope that whoever threw that brick doesn't decide to do worse next time. You hope that Luca Bernardi doesn't decide you're useful leverage. You hope you survive long enough for people to forget about you. That's not a choice. That's a threat. That's reality. He moved closer, and Sophia fought the urge to back away. I'm not the villain in your story, Miss Castellano. I'm just the only one offering you a way out. Sophia looked at the contract. At the salary line. At the health insurance she desperately needed. At the chance to maybe get her life back. I need to think about it. Antonio nodded. Started to speak. Sophia's phone rang. Her landlord. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Miss Castellano, Mr. Chen's voice was tight. I'm very sorry, but I have to ask you to vacate your apartment. End of the week. What? You can't do that. I have a lease. Which includes a clause about criminal activity and public disturbances. The reporters are disturbing other tenants. I've received complaints. You need to leave. I'm not doing anything wrong. Nevertheless, End of week. I'm sorry. He hung up. Sophia stood there, phone in hand, feeling her life crumble like sand.
No job.
No apartment. $400 in the bank. Her little brother, depending on her help with tuition. What did he say? Antonio asked quietly. I have to leave my apartment. By Friday, she laughed, high and desperate. Because of you. Because I had the terrible luck of spilling wine on you. I'm sorry. She looked up at him, this dangerous man who'd somehow become the center of her collapsing world. Are you? Are you actually sorry? Or is this all just part of your game? For a moment, something flickered across his face. Something almost human. Both, he admitted. I'm sorry this happened to you, but I'm also pragmatic enough to use it. Honest, at least. Sophia had to give him that. She looked at the contract again. Then at her phone showing her bank balance. Then at the window, at the city that had promised her everything and delivered nothing but chaos. If I do this, she said slowly, I want rules. Boundaries. This is a job. Nothing else. I show up, do the work, and when this blows over, I leave. We're not friends. We're not. Anything. Agreed. And I stay in my own place. I'm not moving into some. You just got evicted. I'll find somewhere else. Where the media will find you immediately. Where you'll be vulnerable. Antonio shook his head. I have a guest wing. Private entrance. Your own space. You'd be safer there. Absolutely not. Miss Castellano.
No.
I'm not living with you. That's insane. They stared at each other. Sophia's phone buzzed again. A text from her building's group chat. The reporters are back. This is ridiculous. When are you leaving? Another message. My kids can't play outside because of your drama. Antonio watched her read the messages. You have until Friday. That's 3 days. Where will you go? Sophia wanted to throw the phone. Wanted to scream. Wanted to rewind to 4 days ago when her biggest problem was a leaky ceiling. Fine, she said through clenched teeth.
Fine.
I'll take the job. And the guest wing. Temporarily. Until this dies down. Smart choice. Don't, she held up a hand. Don't act like this is a choice. This is surrender. This is me being backed into a corner with nowhere else to go. I know, and he actually sounded like he meant it. Pack a bag. I'll send Rossi to pick you up tomorrow. My stuff. I'll have it moved professionally. Stored until you need it, he walked her to the door. This isn't what you wanted. I understand that. But I promise you, you'll be safe. That's not nothing. Sophia paused at the threshold. What happens when they figure out I'm living here? Won't that make everything worse? Antonio's smile was cold. Let them try to touch you under my roof. I dare them. It should have been terrifying. Instead, for the first time in 3 days, Sophia felt something almost like relief. Antonio's smile was cold. Let them try to touch you under my roof. I dare them. It should have been terrifying. Instead, for the first time in 3 days, Sophia felt something almost like relief. She was in the shark's territory now. But at least she knew where the shark was. Sophia's guest wing was bigger than her entire apartment. Private entrance.
Bedroom.
Sitting area. Bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. The closet was already stocked with clothes at her size, expensive brands she recognized from window shopping but could never afford. Tasteful. Professional. Nothing flashy. It creeped her out how prepared they'd been. She'd been there 2 days. 2 days of avoiding Antonio, eating meals in her room, and trying to adjust to the bizarre reality of living in a crime boss's penthouse. The foundation job didn't start until Monday. Until then, she was just existing in this strange limbo. On the 3rd morning, boredom won. Sophia ventured out of her wing, exploring the main house. It was quiet, eerily so for a place she assumed would be full of dangerous men. She found a library with floor-to-ceiling books, a gem that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel, and finally, a massive chef's kitchen. The smell of coffee drew her in. She was reaching for a mug when she heard voices. Angry voices. Coming from the pantry area around the corner. You think you can steal from this house? A man's voice, low and venomous. You think we wouldn't notice? I didn't. I swear, Mr. Mancini, I didn't take anything. A woman, terrified, young. Sophia froze. Every instinct said turn around.
Leave.
This wasn't her business. But that voice, that fear, made her feet move forward instead. She rounded the corner and stopped dead. Carlo Mancini had a young maid, couldn't be more than 20, pressed against the wall. A knife glinted in his hand, not touching her but close enough to make the threat obvious. The girl's face was streaked with tears. Please, the maid whimpered. I have a little sister. I need this job. Should have thought of that before you stole. Hey! Sophia's voice came out sharper than she intended. Louder. Carlo spun around, knife still in hand. His handsome face twisted into something ugly. This doesn't concern you. You're threatening her with a knife. That concerns anyone with basic human decency. Basic human. Carlo laughed, sharp and mean. You've been here 3 days and you think you know how things work? This girl stole money from the household fund. That's theft. Theft gets punished. I didn't steal anything, the maid sobbed. Sophia stepped closer, heart hammering. Then call the police. Press charges. Don't threaten teenagers with knives in the kitchen like a psychopath. Carlo's eyes went cold. You need to learn your place, sweetheart. You're not special. You're just the latest distraction. The boss will get bored, and then you'll be gone. But I'll still be here. So, I suggest you turn around and put the knife down, Carlo. Antonio's voice cut through the kitchen like ice water. Carlo spun around. Antonio stood in the doorway, still in his morning clothes, dress pants, white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. But there was nothing casual about his expression. Boss, this isn't. I said put it down. Carlo hesitated. For a moment, Sophia saw something flash across his face. Calculation. Resentment. Then he lowered the knife, setting it on the counter. She stole from us, Carlo said. I was handling it. By threatening her in my kitchen, where Sophia could walk in. Antonio moved into the room, each step deliberate. Where any of the staff could see. Where you make us look like thugs instead of businessmen. She's just a maid. And you're just an underboss. Which means you don't make decisions about punishment in my house without my approval. Antonio looked at the terrified girl. What's your name? Maria, sir. Maria. Did you steal from the household fund?
No, sir.
I swear on my mother's grave. I would never. Antonio pulled out his phone, made a call. Rossi. The household fund. Someone reported money missing. I want the security footage from the office. Last 48 hours, he paused. I'll wait. The silence was excruciating. Carlo shifted his weight, jaw tight. Maria pressed herself against the wall. Sophia stood between them, acutely aware she'd just inserted herself into something dangerous. Antonio's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, nodded. Maria, you're cleared. The footage shows you never entered the office. However, it does show someone else pocketing cash yesterday. His eyes slid to Carlo. Your nephew. Tommy's kid. Carlo went pale. You accused her, Antonio said quietly, to cover for family. That's loyalty. I appreciate loyalty. But threatening innocent staff, making them cry in my kitchen? That's sloppy. That's weak. Boss, I didn't know. You didn't check. You assumed. And then you pulled a weapon on a girl because it was easier than admitting you screwed up. Antonio gestured to the floor. Kneel. Carlo blinked. What? You heard me. Kneel. Apologize to Maria. Then apologize to Sophia for making her witness this garbage. Tony, come on. It's Mr. Russo when you've disappointed me.
Kneel. Now.
The kitchen felt like a pressure cooker. Carlo's face went through several expressions, shock, anger, humiliation. Sophia saw his hand twitch toward where he probably kept a gun.
Don't be stupid, she thought.
Please don't be stupid. Finally, slowly, Carlo lowered himself to one knee. I apologize, he said through clenched teeth. Maria. Miss Castellano. I was wrong. Good. Antonio turned to Maria. Take the day off.
Paid.
And if anyone bothers you about this, you come directly to me. Understand? Maria nodded frantically and fled. Antonio looked at Sophia. You should go too. I just wanted coffee. There's a machine in your wing. It was dismissal, but not angry. Almost. Protective. Sophia grabbed a mug, filled it, and left. But not before she saw Antonio lean close to Carlo, still kneeling, and whisper something that made the underboss's face go white. Later that afternoon, in the study, Rossi found Antonio reviewing contracts. Carlo's upset, Rossi said carefully. You humiliated him in front of the girl and the staff. He humiliated himself. I just made sure everyone saw it. He's ambitious, Tony. Always has been. Stunts like this make him desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. Antonio set down his pen. What would you have done? Given him a pass. He's family. Third-generation Russo crew. And that's why we're different, Rossi. You'd let it slide. Let him think family means immunity. I'd rather he remember who's in charge. Antonio leaned back. Besides, Sophia was right to interrupt. The girl was innocent. Carlo was being a bully. Rossi studied his boss. You're changing.
No.
I'm adapting. Because of her. Antonio didn't answer. But he didn't have to. Something had shifted in the house. The men felt it. Carlo especially felt it. The way Antonio had chosen to defend Sophia's sense of justice over his underboss's authority. In the underworld, perception was everything. And the perception now was that Sophia Castellano had influence. That made her powerful. And in Antonio's world, power always came with a price. The reporter seemed nice enough. Her name was Jessica Mills, and she approached Sophia outside the foundation office on her third day of work. Young, professional, with warm eyes and a disarming smile. Sophia? Hi, I'm Jessica from the Metro Weekly. I know you've been dealing with a lot of media attention. I wanted to offer you a chance to tell your side of the story. The real story, not the tabloid version. Sophia had been instructed by Rossi to refuse all media requests. But Jessica wasn't pushy. She wasn't invasive. She just seemed genuine. I don't think that's a good idea, Sophia said carefully. I understand. But these stories aren't going away. Right now, everyone's speculating, making up narratives. Wouldn't you rather control what people believe? Jessica pulled out a business card. Reputable publication. Fact-checking. No tabloid nonsense. Just your truth. Sophia looked at the card. Metro Weekly was legitimate. She'd seen it on newsstands. Not some gossip rag. Off the record? Jessica added. Just a conversation. I won't publish anything you're not comfortable with. That was the hook. Off the record felt safe. They met at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the foundation. Jessica asked easy questions at first. How was Sophia adjusting? Was the foundation job fulfilling? Did she feel safe? Then the questions shifted. So you're living in Mr. Russo's penthouse now. In the guest wing. Temporarily. Until the media attention dies down. Must be strange. Living with someone with his reputation.
It's fine.
He's been professional. Professional, Jessica smiled. That's an interesting choice of words. Some people might say you've landed yourself quite an arrangement. Beautiful apartment, well-paying job, protection from one of the most powerful men in New York. Something in her tone made Sophia pause. It's not like that. Like what? Like whatever you're implying. I spilled wine on him. Everything after that has been damage control. I didn't ask for any of this. But you're benefiting from it. While he's out there breaking people's arms to defend your honor. Sophia set down her coffee. I think we're done here. Wait, I'm sorry. That came out wrong. Jessica's expression softened. I'm just trying to understand. You went from waitress to living in a penthouse in less than a week. Some people might call that convenient. Some people don't know what they're talking about. So, you're saying Mr. Russo isn't soft on you? That the rumors about him changing are false? I'm saying I barely know him. We're not anything. He offered me protection because the situation got out of control. That's it. Jessica nodded, writing notes. And his men, how do they treat you? Sophia thought of Carlo's cold stare across the dinner table. The whispers that stopped when she entered a room. Some of them don't want me there. Can't blame them. You're an outsider who walked into their world and somehow ended up with special treatment. Must create tension. I guess. Do you think he's going soft? Antonio Russo, I mean. Everyone's asking. The hug, the protection, making you off limits. Is the king losing his edge? The question landed like a trap closing. I need to go, Sophia said, standing. Sophia, wait. But she was already walking out, a sick feeling in her stomach. The article dropped 48 hours later. Inside the mob boss's penthouse, Waitress speaks out about Antonio Russo's soft side. Sophia stared at her phone in horror, scrolling through quotes that were technically hers but twisted beyond recognition. Some of his men don't want me there. I can't blame them. Special treatment. Creates tension. And worst of all, is the king losing his edge? I guess. The article painted her as a calculating opportunist who'd landed a sweet setup and was now mocking Antonio behind his back, calling him soft, questioning his power. Her phone rang. Rossi. Get to the penthouse.
Now.
The atmosphere in Antonio's office was nuclear. 6 men surrounded the desk where Antonio sat, stone-faced, reading the article on his tablet. Carlos stood closest, practically vibrating with rage. She played you, Carlos spit. We all knew it. She's been laughing at you this whole time. We don't know that, Rossi started. It's right there. In print. She called you soft. Said you've lost your edge. She's mocking you to the press. Carlos slammed his hand on the desk. This is exactly what Bernardi wanted. Proof that you're weak. That you've let some nobody waitress make a fool of you. Another underboss, Marcus, nodded grimly. The guys are talking, boss. They're saying you're distracted. That you care more about protecting her than protecting your reputation.
She needs to go, Carlos said.
Tonight. Make an example. Show everyone that nobody disrespects you. Nobody. Antonio remained silent, reading. Tony, Rossi stepped forward. I hate to say it, but he's right. Not about making an example, but about cutting her loose. This article makes you look weak. Makes us all look weak. You need distance from her. Send her somewhere safe. Set her up with money. But get her out of your house. More murmurs of agreement. Antonio finally looked up. His expression was unreadable. You're all idiots, he said calmly. The room went silent. Boss, Carlos started. This is exactly what Bernardi wants. You don't see it. Antonio stood, tossing the tablet on the desk. A reporter approaches Sophia. Makes her comfortable. Gets her talking. Then twists every word to make it sound like she's mocking me. The article drops just as tensions with the other families are highest. Perfect timing to make me look weak and force my hand. He paced the room, hands in pockets. If I hurt her, I prove I'm scared of public opinion. If I kick her out, I prove she got under my skin. Either way, Bernardi wins. So, what do you suggest? Rossi asked. I suggest we do nothing. Nothing. Carlo's voice cracked. She called you soft. She called me professional. The reporter twisted it. There's a difference. Antonio fixed Carlo with a hard stare. And anyone who can't see this is an obvious setup probably shouldn't be in this room making decisions. Carlo's face flushed. The article is bait, Antonio continued. Designed to make me react emotionally instead of strategically. They want me to hurt her because that makes me look like a monster. Or they want me to hide her away because that makes me look weak. So we do neither. Then what? Marcus asked. Business as usual. Sophia stays. She keeps working. We act like this article is beneath our notice. Antonio returned to his desk. And we find out who paid Jessica Mills. Because reporters don't orchestrate hit pieces for free. Rossi nodded slowly. You think Bernardi bankrolled it? I know he did. He's probing for weaknesses. Testing boundaries. Antonio's smile was cold. Let him keep testing. Every move he makes gives us more information. What about Sofia? Rossi asked. She's going to feel terrible about this. She's also the victim. Bernardi used her to get to me. That makes her more valuable, not less. Antonio checked his watch. She should be here soon. When she arrives, everyone treats her normally, professionally. No accusations. No hostility. Am I clear? Reluctant nods around the room. Except Carlo, whose jaw was clenched so tight Sofia could practically hear his teeth grinding.
Carlo.
Am I clear? Crystal, boss. But his eyes said something different. When Sofia arrived, terrified and apologetic, Antonio met her in the hallway. I'm so sorry, she started immediately. I shouldn't have talked to her. I didn't say those things the way she made it sound. I swear I didn't. I know. Sofia stopped.
You.
No. It's a setup. Bernardi's testing me. Using you as bait. Antonio's expression softened slightly. You're not in trouble, Sofia. You're just caught in the middle of something that has nothing to do with you. Relief flooded her face. So I can stay. You can stay. What he didn't tell her was that staying made her both shield and target. That his decision to keep her had just driven a wedge deeper between him and his men. That Carlo was already planning his next move. Some truths Antonio had learned were kinder left unsaid. The children's literacy benefit was small and intimate, exactly the kind of low-key event that would help normalize Sofia's presence in Antonio's world. 50 donors, no press, just wealthy people writing checks and feeling good about themselves. Antonio had insisted she come. We need to be seen together looking professional, he'd explained that morning. Colleagues. Nothing more. It reinforces the narrative that you work for the foundation. So Sofia wore one of the dresses that had mysteriously appeared in her closet, navy blue, elegant but not flashy, and played the part of grateful employee. She smiled at donors, talked about the foundation's programs, stood next to Antonio while he gave a brief speech, and nobody died or pulled a gun. It almost felt normal. You did well tonight, Antonio said as they left through the back exit. His driver, Tommy, waited with the car, a black SUV with tinted windows. 2 more SUVs flanked them, front and back. Security protocol. I didn't realize I was being graded, Sofia said, climbing into the back seat. Antonio slid in beside her. You're always being graded. Everyone here is watching to see if you're a liability or an asset. And what's the verdict? Still pending, but there was something almost like approval in his voice. The convoy pulled out onto the dark street. This part of Manhattan was quiet at night. Warehouses, closed businesses, the kind of industrial area that emptied after 5 p.m. Tommy drove smoothly, the 2 escort vehicles maintaining careful positions. Sofia watched the city lights blur past. Can I ask you something? You just did. Why did you really let me stay? After the article? Antonio was quiet for a moment. Because Bernardi wanted me to react. Wanted me to prove I was scared or angry or weak. The best way to win that game is to refuse to play. So, I'm just a chess piece. We're all chess pieces. The question is whether you move yourself or let someone else move you. Sofia was processing that when the first SUV exploded. Not literally exploded, but one moment it was ahead of them, and the next it swerved violently as gunfire tore through the windows. Glass shattered. The vehicle careened into a parked truck. Get down. Antonio's hand clamped on Sofia's head, forcing her below the window line. Tommy cursed, slamming the accelerator. More gunshots, loud, impossibly loud, like fireworks going off inside her skull. The rear window shattered, spraying glass across the seat. They're boxing us in, Tommy shouted. Sofia's heart hammered against her ribs. She couldn't see, pressed against the leather seat with Antonio's weight half covering her. but she heard everything.
Gunfire.
Squealing tires. Men shouting. The rear escort vehicle returning fire. Their SUV lurched left, mounted a curb, crashed through a chain-link fence. Service alley, Tommy yelled. Hold on. The vehicle scraped between two buildings, so narrow the side mirrors shattered. Behind them, more gunfire. One of the rear tires blew, sending them into a fishtail. Tommy wrestled with the wheel, got them straight, and slammed into a garbage truck blocking the alley exit. The impact threw Sophia forward into her seatbelt. Her head cracked against something hard. Stars exploded across her vision.
Out. Now.
Antonio's voice cut through the ringing in her ears. He kicked his door open and pulled her across the seat. Sophia's legs didn't want to work. Everything moved like she was underwater. Can you run? Antonio demanded. Sophia nodded. Probably a lie, but what choice did she have? They were in some kind of service alley, surrounded by dumpsters and loading docks. Tommy was already out, gun drawn, scanning for threats. The rear escort vehicle screeched into the alley behind them. Then men appeared at the other end. 3 of them.
Armed.
Moving with military precision. Russo, one of them called. Bernardi sends his regards. Antonio pushed Sophia behind him. Get behind the dumpster. Stay low. Don't move until I tell you. What are you? Do it. Sophia ran, heels clicking on pavement, and dove behind a rusted industrial dumpster. Her dress tore. Her palms scraped concrete. None of it mattered because the shooting started again. Antonio moved like violence was choreographed dance. The first attacker fired 3 shots. Antonio was already moving, using the SUV for cover, returning fire with a gun Sophia hadn't seen him draw. The attacker went down, clutching his leg. The second attacker came around the vehicle's opposite side. Antonio spun, grabbed the man's gun arm, twisted it at a sickening angle. The gun clattered away. Antonio's elbows smashed into the man's face once, twice, then drove him into the SUV's hood. A knee to the stomach. The man crumpled. The third attacker made it 3 steps before Tommy shot him in the shoulder. And then it was over.
Just like that.
30 seconds of violence, and 3 men were down. Blood pooled on the pavement. One of them groaned, trying to crawl away. Tommy kicked his gun out of reach. Sophia's hands shook. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. Antonio walked to the first man, the one he'd shot in the leg, pressed his foot on the wound. The man screamed. Who else knew about tonight? Antonio asked, voice conversational, like he was asking about the weather. Fuck you. Antonio pressed harder.
Who else
knew? Inside job, the man gasped. Someone in your crew. Gave Bernardi the route. Sophia watched from behind the dumpster, unable to look away. This was the real Antonio Russo. Not the controlled businessman. Not the smooth operator. This was the man who'd built an empire on fear. He was terrifying. And he'd just killed 2 people protecting her. Antonio removed his foot, pulled out his phone. Rossi. We were ambushed. 3 attackers. They knew our route. We have a leak, he paused. Handle it, and send a cleanup crew to the industrial district off 9th Avenue. He ended the call and finally turned to Sophia. You can come out now. Sophia stood on shaking legs. Her dress was ruined, her hands bleeding, her mind replaying the violence on loop. Antonio crossed to her, and she flinched.
He stopped.
Something flickered across his face. Not hurt exactly, but awareness. Are you injured? He asked quietly.
No, just
scared.
Good.
Fear keeps you alive. He looked at the bodies, then back at her. This is what my world looks like, Sophia. Not foundations and charity galas.
This.
Blood and bullets and people trying to kill you in dark alleys. You understand now. Sophia nodded. She understood perfectly. She was in a war zone. And Antonio Russo was the only thing standing between her and the people who wanted to use her as ammunition. The car's dead. Tommy said, rejoining them. Backups 3 minutes out. Antonio removed his jacket and draped it over Sophia's shoulders. It was warm and smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder. We wait, Antonio said. And Sophia? Yeah. You listened when I told you to get down. You didn't panic. You stayed put, he almost smiled. You might actually survive this after all. It should have been comforting. Instead, Sophia realized with creeping horror that surviving was now the bar for success. It should have been comforting. Instead, Sophia realized with creeping horror that surviving was now the bar for success. And the night had just proven how easily that bar could be shattered. Sophia didn't leave the penthouse for 5 days. Not couldn't. Wasn't allowed. Antonio had tripled security. Men with guns stood outside her wing. Cameras monitored every entrance. The windows had been fitted with bulletproof glass overnight. When she asked to go to the foundation office, Rossi politely, but firmly said no. Too dangerous right now. We're still investigating the leak. So Sophia was trapped. Again. In a gilded cage that got smaller every day. She tried to keep busy. Read books from the library. Worked remotely on foundation projects. Avoided thinking about the bodies in the alley, the sound of gunfire, the casual way Antonio had pressed his foot on a man's gunshot wound. But the walls kept closing in. On the 5th night, she snapped. Antonio was in his study, reviewing documents. Sophia didn't knock. Just stormed in, still in her pajamas, hair wild, eyes blazing. I want out. Antonio looked up, expression unreadable. Out. Out of this penthouse. Out of this life. Out of whatever twisted protection arrangement we have. Her voice shook. You said you'd keep me safe. This isn't safe. This is a prison. A prison that's kept you alive.
No.
You dragged me into this. Before you, I was nobody. A waitress. Invisible. Now I have people shooting at me, reporters stalking me, your own men plotting against me. She laughed, high and bitter. You're not protecting me, Antonio. You've dragged me into this. Something flickered across his face. You think I don't know that? Then let me go. Send me away. Give me money and a new identity and let me disappear. Anything is better than sitting in this apartment waiting for the next person to try to kill me. You wouldn't last a week. Maybe not. But at least it would be my choice. Antonio stood slowly. Your choice? You want to talk about choices? His voice remained quiet, but something dangerous lurked beneath. Every choice I've made since that gala has been about keeping you alive, moving you here, giving you the job, defending you to my men, breaking Marco's arm, fighting off an ambush that killed one of my best drivers. Sophia faltered. She had known about the driver. Every choice, Antonio continued, has cost me authority, respect, unity in my own organization. I have an underboss who questions every decision I make because of you. I have rivals who think I've gone soft because of you. I have a leak in my crew, someone willing to sell me out probably because of you. Then why? Sophia's voice cracked. Why keep doing it? Why not just let me go? Antonio opened his mouth, closed it, turned to the window, hands in pockets, shoulders tight. The silence stretched. Because you hugged me, he finally said. Sophia blinked. What? That night. At the gala. You spilled wine on me, and instead of apologizing properly or running away, you hugged me. He laughed, sharp and humorless. Do you know how long it's been since someone touched me without fear? Without calculation? Without wanting something? Antonio. 10 years. Maybe longer. People shake my hand because they have to. They sit across from me at negotiations with their hands under the table where I can't see them. They flinch when I move too fast. My own men measure the distance to exits when I'm angry. He turned to face her, and Sophia saw something she'd never seen before. Not the crime boss. Not the calculated businessman. Just a man who looked exhausted. But you, he continued quietly, you crashed into me and just held on. Like I was normal. like I was human. And for 3 seconds, I remembered what that felt like. Sophia's anger dissolved into something more complicated. Something that made her chest ache. I can't afford to feel human, Antonio said. The moment I do, I make mistakes. Let my guard down. Show weakness. And in my world, weakness gets you killed. He moved closer. But I can't seem to stop protecting you. Can't seem to let you go. Because every time I see you, I remember those 3 seconds. That's not fair, Sophia whispered.
No.
It's not. He stopped 2 feet away. Close enough to see the exhaustion in his eyes, the gray threading his dark hair. I'm sorry. For everything. For dragging you into this. For keeping you trapped. For being too selfish to let you disappear. You're not selfish. You're scared. His jaw tightened. I'm not. You are. You're scared that if I leave, you'll go back to being the man who hasn't been hugged in 10 years. The man everyone's afraid of. You're scared of being alone. The words hung between them like a live wire. Maybe, Antonio admitted finally. Maybe I am. Sophia sank into the chair behind her. All the fight drained out, replaced by bone-deep weariness. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to live in your world. I'm not built for violence and danger and constantly looking over my shoulder.
Neither was I.
Once, Antonio sat across from her. I was supposed to be a lawyer. Did you know that? Went to Columbia. Top of my class. Then my father was killed, and suddenly I was the heir to something I never wanted. You could have walked away. Could I? With my family's blood on my hands and everyone watching to see if I'd fold. He shook his head. We don't always get to choose our lives, Sophia. Sometimes life chooses for us. The question is what we do with the hand we're dealt. And what am I supposed to do with mine?
Survive. Adapt.
Fight, he leaned forward. You're stronger than you think. You didn't panic during the ambush. You listened. You stayed calm. That's not nothing. I was terrified. Fear and strength aren't opposites. The bravest people I know are scared all the time. They just don't let the fear stop them. Sophia met his eyes. Really looked at him for the first time since she'd stormed in. Saw the exhaustion. The conflict. The man behind the reputation. I'm still angry at you, she said. I know. And I still want out eventually. I know that too. But I don't want you to die because of me. I don't want anyone else to die because of me. Antonio's expression softened. Then we figured out. Together. I find a leak. I deal with Bernardi. And when it's safe, truly safe, you can decide whether to stay or go. And if I choose to go. He was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll let you. With enough money to start over anywhere you want. Clean slate. New life, he paused. But I'll miss those 3 seconds. Something in Sophia's chest twisted. This was dangerous. Not the bullets and ambushes kind of dangerous. Something worse. She was starting to see Antonio Russo as human. And that changed everything. I should go to bed, she said, standing. Sophia. She paused at the door. Thank you. For listening tonight. For not running when you had the chance. I didn't have a choice, she said. You always have a choice. You just chose to stay. Sophia left before she could examine why that felt true. Behind her, Antonio returned to the window, touching his chest where she'd hugged him 2 weeks and a lifetime ago. The crack in his armor was widening. Sophia left before she could examine why that felt true. Behind her, Antonio returned to the window, touching his chest where she'd hugged him 2 weeks and a lifetime ago. The crack in his armor was widening. And somewhere in the penthouse, Carlo was taking notes. The guard outside Sophia's wing was new. She'd noticed him that morning. Young, early 20s, with nervous eyes that wouldn't meet hers. Not one of the usual rotation. When she'd asked Rossi about it, he'd waved it off. Jimmy called in sick. This is Danny. Good kid. Vetted. Sophia hadn't thought about it again. She'd been too distracted by foundation work, by the walls closing in, by the memory of Antonio's confession 3 nights ago. I remembered what it felt like to be human. She was reviewing donor spreadsheets on her laptop when her door opened. Not knocked. Just opened. Carlo stepped inside, casual as if he owned the place. The new guard, Danny, stood behind him, gun drawn but pointed at the floor. Sophia's blood went cold. Mr. Mancini, she kept her voice steady. Something I can help you with. Actually, yes, Carlo closed the door behind him. You can come with me. Quietly. Without making this difficult. I'm not going anywhere with you. Carlo sighed, like she was a child refusing to eat vegetables. See, I was hoping you'd be smart about this. Save everyone some trouble. Antonio will. Antonio's not here. He's at a meeting in Queens. Won't be back for 2 hours. Carlo checked his watch. Plenty of time to get you where you need to go. Sophia's hand moved toward her phone. Carlo was faster. He snatched it from the table, pocketed it. Danny here is going to report a false alarm. Nothing happened. You went to bed early. By the time anyone realizes you're gone, we'll be across state lines. Why are you doing this? Carlo's expression hardened. Because I'm tired of watching a waitress destroy everything we've built. Antonio's changed since you arrived.
Softer.
Weaker. Making decisions with his heart instead of his head. The men see it. The rivals see it. He's a liability now. He protected me. He's obsessed with you. There's a difference. Carlo moved closer. Sophia backed up until she hit the wall. You're the problem. Remove you and Antonio goes back to being who he was. Or he doesn't and someone stronger takes over. Someone like you. Someone like me. Carlo smiled. Bernardi's offering me a seat at his table. Real power. All I have to do is deliver one scared little girl. Sophia's mind raced. The door was blocked. The window was bulletproof. Couldn't break it even if she tried. The guard was compromised. Screaming would bring more of Carlo's people. She was trapped. Antonio will kill you for this, she said quietly. Maybe. If he survives what comes next. Carlo nodded to Danny. Bring the van around back. Service entrance. Danny hesitated. Boss said no one moves her without his direct. I'm giving you a direct order. Or, are you having second thoughts about our arrangement? Our arrangement. Carlo had bought him. Probably with more money than a 20-something guard made in a year. Danny left, and Sophia was alone with Carlo. You don't have to do this, she tried. Antonio trusts you. Values you. If you just... Antonio values you. That's the problem. He broke Marco's arm for laughing about you. Made me kneel in front of the staff because I threatened some maid you'd never met. Everything comes back to you now. Carlo's voice was bitter. I've been with this family since I was 16. Earned my position. Bled for it. But you hug him once, and suddenly you're untouchable. I never asked for any of this. Doesn't matter. You're here. And as long as you are, Antonio's weak. The organization's weak. So you go, or we all go down with you. Danny returned, whispered something. Carlo nodded. Van's ready. Let's go. No. Carlo pulled a gun. Not pointed at her, just visible. A reminder of how quickly this could go wrong. I don't want to hurt you, Sophia. Bernardi wants you alive. But alive doesn't mean unharmed. Walk with me, or Danny carries you. Your choice. Sophia's hands shook. She thought about screaming. Thought about fighting. Thought about all the ways this could end badly. Then she thought about what Antonio had said. Fear and strength aren't opposites.
Fine.
I'll go. Carlo's eyes narrowed, suspicious. Just like that? Just like that. Because you're right. I'm not brave enough to get shot over this. She kept her voice small. Defeated. Just don't hurt me. Please. Carlo relaxed slightly. That was his mistake. He thought he'd won. They walked through the service corridors, taking routes Sophia didn't recognize. Danny led, Carlo behind her, gun in his jacket. They passed storage rooms, staff quarters, a laundry facility. The deeper they went, the farther from help. Finally, a service exit. An unmarked van waited in the alley, engine running. In, Carlo ordered. Sophia climbed into the back. No windows. Just empty cargo space and zip ties on the floor. Her stomach dropped. Carlo climbed in after her. Danny took the driver's seat. Hands, Carlo ordered, picking up the zip ties. Sophia held out her wrists. Carlo bound them tight, tighter than necessary. The plastic bit into her skin. Nothing personal, Carlo said. Just business. The van pulled away, and through the crack in the partition, Sophia watched the penthouse disappear. She was alone.
Bound.
In a van headed toward people who wanted to use her as a weapon. And Antonio had no idea. Rossi found the empty room 20 minutes later. The laptop still open. Sophia's jacket on the chair. Her phone gone. Danny missing from his post. His blood went cold. He called Antonio immediately. Boss, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Sophia's gone. Her guard's missing. No sign of struggle. But, find her. Antonio's voice went deadly quiet. Check the security footage. Every camera. Every angle. Find out who took her and where they went. Rossi pulled up the security system on his tablet. Scrolled through feeds. Found the service corridor camera. Watched Carlo walk Sophia out at gunpoint. Boss, Rossi said, his voice shaking with rage. It was Carlo. Silence on the line. The kind of silence that came before storms. He's working with Bernardi, Rossi continued. Has to be. He's delivering her. Where? I don't know yet. Give me 10 minutes. You have 5. And Rossi? Yeah. When I find Carlo, there won't be enough left to bury. The line went dead. Rossi stared at the security footage, watching Carlo, Antonio's underboss, his father's godson, family for 20 years, betray everything for ambition. This wasn't just kidnapping. This was war. And Sofia Castellano, the girl who'd accidentally hugged a crime boss at a charity gala, was the spark that would burn everything down. In the van, Sophia pressed her bound hands against her stomach and tried to control her breathing. She'd survived 2 weeks in Antonio's world. Survived reporters, threats, ambushes, and lockdowns. She just had to survive a little longer. Long enough for Antonio to find her. Because he would find her. She believed that with a certainty that scared her more than the zip ties or the gun, or the men who wanted to use her as ammunition. He would come. Because he would find her. She believed that with a certainty that scared her more than the zip ties or the gun, or the men who wanted to use her as ammunition. He would come. And when he did, God help anyone who'd touched her. The warehouse was in Jersey. Abandoned. The kind of place where bad things happened and bodies disappeared. Sophia sat in a metal chair, hands still bound, while Carlo paced and checked his phone. They'd been waiting for 20 minutes. Luca Bernardi was late. He'll be here, Carlo muttered, more to himself than her. He promised. A seat at the table. Real power. You're an idiot, Sophia said. Carlo spun around. What? You heard me. You think Bernardi's going to honor a deal with someone who betrayed his own boss? He's going to use you and throw you away. Shut up. Antonio trusted you. Treated you like family. And you sold him out for a promise from a man who breaks promises for a living. Carlo backhanded her. Sophia's head snapped to the side, pain exploding across her cheek. She tasted blood. I said shut up. Carlo's hand shook. You don't know anything. You're just some waitress who got lucky. Who stumbled into something she doesn't understand. I understand betrayal when I see it. Before Carlo could respond, car doors slammed outside. Voices. Footsteps. Luca Bernardi entered with 4 men. He looked pleased with himself, like a cat who'd caught a particularly clever mouse. Carlo Luca smiled. You actually did it. I'm impressed. We had a deal, Carlo said. I delivered her. Now I want your seat at the table. Yes, Luca waved dismissively. We'll discuss that. First, let's talk about this 1 inch. He walked to Sophia, tilted her chin up to examine her bruised face. She jerked away. The girl who tamed Antonio Russo with a hug. Luca laughed. Hard to believe such a little thing could cause so much chaos. I didn't cause anything, Sophia said. No? You made him weak. Made him sloppy. Made him start a war over a nobody. Luca pulled out his phone, started recording video. Now you're going to help me finish it. You're going to tell the world that Antonio Russo is dangerous, unstable, that you've been his prisoner, that you fear for your life. No. It wasn't a request. Luca nodded to one of his men, who grabbed Sophia's hair, yanked her head back. You'll read exactly what I tell you to read. And if you don't, I'll start removing fingers until you change your mind. Sophia's heart hammered. The camera pointed at her face. Luca held up a script. Read. Sophia looked at the words. Looked at Luca's smug face. Looked at Carlo, who wouldn't meet her eyes. And then she heard it.
Gunfire.
Outside.
Shouts.
More gunfire. Luca's expression changed. What? The warehouse door exploded inward. Antonio Russo walked through like death itself, flanked by Rossi and 6 armed men. His suit was perfect. His face was perfectly calm. But his eyes were murder. Sophia, he said quietly. Close your eyes. She obeyed. What happened next she only heard.
Gunfire.
Screaming. Bodies hitting concrete. The wet sound of impact. A man begging. Then silence. You can open them now, Antonio said. Sophia opened her eyes. Luca's 4 men were down. Not dead. Antonio's people had been surgical. Wounded, disarmed, neutralized. Luca himself was on his knees, hands zip-tied behind his back. And Carlo stood frozen, gun in hand but not raised, staring at Antonio like he was seeing a ghost. Boss, Carlo started. I can explain. Antonio shot him. Not in the head. In the knee. Carlo collapsed, screaming, clutching his shattered leg. You can explain? Antonio's voice was conversational. Almost pleasant.
Please.
Explain how you sold out your family. Explain how you kidnapped someone under my protection. Explain how you thought you'd survive this. Antonio, please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Antonio walked to Sophia, pulled a knife, cut her zip ties. His hands were gentle, checking her bruised face, her wrists where the plastic had cut into skin. Did Carlo do this? Sophia nodded. Antonio's jaw tightened. He turned back to Carlo. 20 years, Antonio said. I've known you for 20 years. Your father saved my life. I made you underboss because I trusted you. And you sold me out for what? A promise from Luca Bernardi. He offered you nothing. Because Luca doesn't honor deals with traitors. Antonio looked at Luca.
Do you?
Luca, still on his knees, said nothing. That's what I thought. Antonio turned back to Carlo. You want to know the funny thing? I was going to step back eventually. Let younger blood take over. You could have had it all. You just had to be patient. I didn't know.
No.
You didn't think. You just wanted. Antonio raised his gun. Goodbye, Carla.
Wait. Please.
I'm family. Not anymore. The shot echoed through the warehouse. Carlo slumped forward, dead before he hit the ground. Sophia looked away, stomach churning. She'd wanted to be saved, but she hadn't expected this. The cold finality. The execution. Antonio holstered his gun and walked to Luca. You want a war? You threaten my people? Try to use her against me. Antonio crouched down. Let me tell you how this ends.
He pulled out his phone.
Showed Luca the screen. That's you. Threatening Sophia. Ordering your men to hurt her if she didn't cooperate. Antonio smiled. All on video. Beautiful quality too. I have excellent security equipment. Luca's face went pale. You're going to leak that. Not just leak. I'm going to send it to every news outlet in New York. Every blog. Every social media account that's been following the mob boss and his waitress story. Antonio stood. And you know what people will see? A girl who hugged me at a charity gala. And a rival who kidnapped her, threatened her, tried to use her as a weapon. Luca's expression twisted with understanding and rage. The hug made me look soft, Antonio continued.
Weak.
Everyone thought I'd lost my edge. But this. He gestured to the phone. This makes me look human. Protective. Like a man defending someone innocent from actual monsters. The public loves that story. The mob boss with a heart. The dangerous man who saved the waitress. The twist landed like a hammer. You're going to weaponize it, Luca breathed. The thing we mocked you for, you're turning it into PR. Into power, Antonio corrected. By tomorrow, I'm not the soft boss who got hugged. I'm the hero who rescued a girl from kidnappers. My reputation shifts from dangerous to dangerous but principled. And you? You're the villain who threatened an innocent woman. He leaned close. The families who were testing me, they'll think twice. Because now I'm not just feared, I'm liked. And that's so much more dangerous. Antonio straightened. Rossi. Let him go. Rossi cut Luca's zip ties. The older man stood shakily. Tell the other families what happened here tonight, Antonio said. Tell them Carlo's dead. Tell them what happens to people who touch what's mine. And tell them that if anyone else wants to test me, I'll be happy to provide more content for the news cycle. Luca stumbled toward the door, his men helping him. At the threshold, he turned back. This isn't over. Yes, Antonio said calmly. It is. You just don't know it yet. Luca left. His wounded men limped after him. The warehouse fell silent except for Sophia's shaky breathing. Antonio returned to her side. Can you walk? I think so. He helped her up. She swayed, and he caught her, arm around her waist. Thank you, she whispered. I'm sorry I wasn't faster. You came. That's what matters. They walked out into the night air. Sophia looked back once at the warehouse, at Carlo's body, at the blood and violence that had become her reality. Are you really going to leak the video? She asked. Already done. Sent it from the car on the way here. Antonio's smile was cold. By morning, you're not the girl who hugged a mobster. You're the victim who survived a kidnapping. And I'm the man who saved you. That's manipulation. That's chess. He opened the car door for her. The hug was an accident that made me look weak. But I just turned it into the best PR move I've ever made. Now everyone who mocked me will look like assholes for laughing while you were in danger. Sophia slid into the car. You're scary when you're smart. I'm always smart. I'm just usually less creative about it. As they drove away, Sophia's phone, returned from Carlo's pocket, started buzzing. Notifications.
Hundreds of them.
The video had gone viral. Hashtag Save Sophia was trending. The narrative had flipped. Sophia slid into the car. You're scary when you're smart. I'm always smart. I'm just usually less creative about it. As they drove away, Sophia's phone, returned from Carlo's pocket, started buzzing. Notifications.
Hundreds of them.
The video had gone viral. Hashtag Save Sophia was trending. The narrative had flipped. And Antonio Russo, the man everyone thought had gone soft over a hug, had just proven he was more dangerous than ever. 6 weeks later, the world looked different. Sophia stood in the foundation office, reviewing a grant application for an after-school reading program in the Bronx. The office was bright, modern, filled with earnest young people who actually believed they could change the world through literacy programs and scholarships. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were naive. Sophia was still figuring out which. Miss Castellano? An intern poked her head in. Mr. Russo's online too. Sophia picked up. Let me guess. You want me at another charity gala. Good afternoon to you too. Antonio's voice carried amusement. And yes, Children's Hospital benefit. Friday night. Your presence is requested. Required, you mean? Requested strongly. Sophia smiled despite herself.
Fine.
But I'm not wearing anything that costs more than my old rent. I'll let the stylist know to keep it reasonable. You're impossible. So I've been told. She hung up, shaking her head. 6 weeks since the kidnapping, and life had settled into something almost normal. Almost. The video had changed everything, just like Antonio predicted. The narrative shifted overnight from mob boss gets soft to mob boss protects innocent woman from rival. Think pieces appeared. Profiles in magazines. A documentary crew had even approached the foundation, though Antonio had politely declined. His reputation had transformed.
Not softened, evolved.
He was still dangerous. Still feared. But now he was dangerous with a human side. The boss who'd rescued Sofia. The man who proved you could be ruthless and principled. Rivals who'd mocked him fell silent. Some even reached out to renegotiate territories, suddenly eager to avoid confrontation. Luca Bernardi had lost 3 major contracts after the video went public. Nobody wanted to work with the man who'd threatened a waitress on camera. Antonio had turned a weakness into a weapon. And Sofia? She was still here. Still working. Still herself. Hey, Sofia. Marcus, one of the foundation coordinators, waved a folder. The Brooklyn Library approved our proposal. They want to meet next week. That's great. Schedule it. You want to bring Mr. Russo? He usually closes these deals. Sofia considered.
No.
I'll handle it. He pays me to do a job. I should actually do it. Marcus grinned. You're the only person in this building who talks about the boss like he's normal. That's because treating him like he's normal is the only thing keeping me sane. That evening, Sofia returned to the penthouse. Her penthouse now. Antonio had quietly transferred the deed to her name 2 weeks ago. So you always have a place to go, he'd said, like giving away multi-million-dollar Manhattan real estate was casual. She found him in the study, reviewing contracts. He looked tired. Good tired. The kind that came from honest work rather than violence. You look like you need coffee, Sofia said, entering without knocking. She'd stopped knocking after the first week back. I need sleep. But coffee's a close second. She sat across from him. Marcus says the Brooklyn Library deal is solid. I'm meeting them next week.
Good.
You're better at the outreach stuff than I am anyway. I scare people. You scare everyone. Not you. Not anymore. Sofia met his eyes. He was right. Somewhere between the hug and the kidnapping and the 6 weeks after, fear had transformed into something more complicated. Trust. Maybe friendship. Maybe something neither of them wanted to name yet. You're staring, she said. So are you. They held the gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Sofia broke first, standing. I should let you work. Sofia. She turned. Thank you, Antonio said. For staying. For not running when you had the chance. Where would I go? You gave me the penthouse. You know what I mean.
She did.
After the rescue, after Carlo, after everything, Antonio had offered her an out. Money. New identity. Clean slate anywhere in the world. She'd said no. Not because she had to stay, because she wanted to. That realization still scared her. Good night, Antonio. Good night. Later, alone in his room, Antonio stood before the mirror. He looked the same as he had 2 months ago. Same face. Same suit. Same expression that had made men fear him for a decade. But something had changed. Something fundamental. He touched his chest. Right where Sofia had hugged him that night at the gala. The spot that had started everything. People still feared him. Maybe more now than before, because he'd proven fear and humanity weren't opposites. He could protect what mattered and destroy what threatened. The world had seen both sides. Rivals thought twice before testing him now. Not because he'd gone soft, but because they'd realized soft was never the right word. Strategic. Calculated. Human. Those were the right words. His phone buzzed. A text from Sofia. Stop working and go to bed. You look like death. He smiled. Actually smiled. Not the cold, calculated expression he used in negotiations. A real one. When had that started happening? Another text. And yes, I can tell you're still working even though I can't see you. I just know. How? Because you're you. Good night, Antonio. He set the phone down and looked at his reflection again. Touched that spot on his chest one more time. One impulsive hug. One moment of human connection from a terrified waitress who didn't know better than to touch him. That's all it took to crack the armor he'd spent 10 years building.
And now?
Now he had something he hadn't had in a decade. Something more valuable than fear or power or territory. He had someone who saw him as human and stayed anyway. The myth had changed. Not weakened, evolved. He was still Antonio Russo. Still dangerous. Still in control. But now, when he looked in the mirror, he saw something he'd forgotten existed. He saw the man he might have been if life had chosen differently. And for the first time in 10 years, that didn't feel like weakness. It felt like possibility. In her wing, Sophia lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering when staying had stopped feeling like surrender and started feeling like choice. Wondering when Antonio Russo had stopped being the dangerous man who'd ruined her life and started being something else entirely. Wondering what happened next. The answer, she suspected, would terrify and exhilarate her in equal measure. But for now, in this moment, she was safe. She was herself. And she was exactly where she'd chosen to be. Everything else could wait until morning.